Welcome back to Legends Live, as presented by the National Basketball Retired Players Association, the home of our NBA and WNBA legends. I'd like to remind you, you can submit your questions during the show. We will answer those before we wrap up. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome in today's guest. We have former Winston-Salem State Ram. He is a former Baltimore Bull as well as New York Knick. He is one half of the Rolls-Royce backcourt, a four-time All-Star, NBA champion, Basketball Hall of Famer. We've got Mr. Earl the Pearl Monroe.
Yeah, you do.
Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Nice to be here.
Oh, of course. First things first, how are you?
I'm coming along. It's pandemic is, slowing up, so everything is getting to be a lot better.
Definitely. Now, you recently joined the Twitter world. How do you like it so far?
Yeah. Well, the Twitter world is interesting. I hate to put all my business, out in the street like this. But,
Right.
But it's cool. I mean, it's a lot of things that I've said in the past, and nobody's heard it. Now I've got a chance to say it, and people will start hearing it. So it's a good thing.
Right. So how did that come about? Was that your idea? Did somebody, a family member, somebody push you toward that?
My daughter, she kind of pushed me to it, and it was cool. I mean, she's, we were sitting around and I'm talking about the game and so forth. And she says, well, why don't you let some people know what you're talking about?
There you go.
And I said, well, you know how I am about trying to be a private person and whatnot, but it's cool. It's I'm able to do a little bit. I could do much more. I want to ease my way into it.
There you go.
But like I said, it's cool.
Definitely. Now, from some of your tweets, you've been keeping up with definitely the Knicks game. You've been watching all the playoffs, I'm guessing.
Well, I do watch the playoffs. I've been watching the Knicks, but I'm a TV guy. So the good thing is to be home where you can channel surf.
Right.
Right. Go back and forth, whatnot. But I've been enjoying the Knicks for the most part. This year they played really well. They've come together, and certainly in a way where nobody expected them to. Right. So I'm pretty happy for not only the team but for New York fans.
So what do you think they need to do to take that next step? They lost a tough one last night. They went out in the first round 4-1 to the Hawks. So what do you think they need to do to take that next step?
I thought they had come together pretty well. And I thought, maybe they needed another so-called superstar or type of guy. But, they've gotten a lot of guys this year, have got a lot of playing time. So, that's going to figure, I guess, as well as to what they're going to try and do next year. I mean, you look at a big man, you look at, Mitchell Robinson, he's been out for the latter part of the year. Nerlens Noel, he comes in and he does a real admirable job. Is that something that they're going to, do? Or are they going to, it's kind of up in the air because in today's game, positions are so interchangeable.
Right.
There are no real big centers, so to speak. There's a couple, but in 30 teams, you still don't have a lot of dominating centers and whatnot. So when you look at the game and how the game is played in a spread out, format. So you got guys that are breaking down the defense. Instead of shooting the layup, they're kicking the ball out to the wing and try to get a 3-pointer. So the size and speed and whatnot is kind of interchangeable in this game.
Now, do you think you would favor like playing more in this game? Like you said, more spread out now. In your day, if you got to the lane, you were probably gonna lay it up. You weren't looking to kick it out to anybody.
No, I mean, it's a bad play to kick it out to somebody who can't make the shot.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I would thrive in this here, because for the most part, this is the kind of game I brought into the
Hmm, definitely.
NBA.
So was that? I mean, was it just like natural to you though? Like it was just the game. Like you kind of always like in high school, growing because you got a. If I'm not mistaken, you got a relatively late start to basketball. Like you were a soccer, uh,
Yeah,
baseball guy.
yeah. I played all that, pretty much, and I was 14 years old, and I was walking down the hall, and the basketball coach saw me. I was 6'3", pretty much the same, height I am now. He saw me and said, "Hey, do you play basketball?" And I said, "No, sir." So he said, "Well, why don't you come down to the gym, this evening?" And so I said, "Okay." I went down, and most of my guys were playing basketball as it
Right.
was. So I got there, and I liked it. I was terrible, but I liked it. I kept at it because I didn't like being that bad.
Right. That's what motivated you.
No doubt, no doubt. As a matter of fact, um, I used to come home and cry to my mom, about how the guys are dogging me and whatnot.
Mm,
And my mom gave me a little notebook. And in
okay.
the notebook, she said, "Listen, Earl, just jot down those names of guys that are, dogging you out and so forth and so on. And as you get better, start scratching them out."
Okay.
And that was also a big motivating thing for me because as I started scratching them out, I first of all was getting better, and I
Right.
knew I was getting better,
Right.
and I just wanted to get more, even more better.
So how long did you keep the notebook? Like, did you do that in college and the pros? Do you still have the notebook? Are you still
I
scratching
wish
people?
I did. I know the names.
Oh yeah, you can still
know,
remember some of those names.
So all those guys, in junior high school and high school,
Mm,
I didn't play varsity until the second half of my junior year in high school. So
mm.
there was a lot of guys that I had to come through.
Right. But you still remember the names.
Absolutely, absolutely. I still go back. My guys in Philly, we talk all the time. So those names keep coming up over and over again.
Right. Now you mentioned grew up in Philly, made your way down to Winston-Salem State. Like had that turn about?
Well, a guy who used to play at Winston-Salem saw me play,
Mm,
and I was going to try out for the old ABL, Philadelphia Tapers and whatnot.
mm.
And that year, the Tapers folded, the whole league folded. So I was like just stranded, so I went to prep school and so forth and so on. The guy saw me there. He asked me if I wanted to go to Winston-Salem. And I had never been south. I had never heard of Winston-Salem. So, I told him, no, not now, and he came back again later on. And by this time I was working. I had dropped out of school. I was working, and I was making $1.15 an hour.
What
So
kind of work were you doing?
I was at a knitting mill,
Okay.
turning knits,
Mm.
going through this shaft of things and turning knits over and things like that. So I, he came back to me, and I waited. I said, "Shucks, if I miss a day, I'm only making $26 a week." So
Right. What's
so
the yeah? What's the worst that could happen?
right, I could do better than this here. So I said, "Well, listen, if my man could go down with me, I'll go." And we went down, to school. I didn't realize it when I went down, though. We weren't on scholarship. We was going down
You just there. Yeah.
to compete, and once we got down there, we found out that we had to make the team, and finally we did make the team, and then we, enrolled in school.
Now, how did you all find that out? I'm just trying to imagine you guys surprised finding out that once you got there, it's like, oh, we still got work to do. How did y'all find that out?
Yeah, that was a little interesting, because we spent our little money to come down on the train, and
Uh-huh.
now we find out we ain't really got a slot.
Right.
But we just took it in stride. I mean, we were there, so we had to do what we had to do. We played, pickup games with guys that were on the team. We played pickup games with the guys in the city, and I guess Coach saw us and decided that, hey, I think they could make it. And one day he said, "Listen, go down to see the dean, and he'll try to straighten you out and whatnot. You got to take your SATs." And all that kind of stuff. But, if you pass that, you're in. And then you can pay your tuition for your first year.
We give you the privilege of paying your tuition for the first year.
No doubt. So I did, but the second half, since I was playing, I decided I wasn't going to pay anymore.
Right. Now, you mentioned Coach, played for Hall of Fame coach Clarence Big House Gaines. What do you remember just in general about playing for him?
He was a tough guy. He was about 6'4", 5", and about 300 pounds. So it wasn't too much, playing around with him.
Right.
But the biggest thing in a nutshell is that he was a real coach and a father figure. And I think the father figure, really stood out because a lot of us guys who went down there, we didn't have our fathers there with us, in life per se.
Right.
And he was that guy to try and teach us, what we should do and how we could do things, and what was right and what was wrong. So he was a big influence, for me, in my life.
Now, while you were there, your last year you averaged 42 points a game in college. So I feel like I got to ask, why'd you stop there? Why not, 43, 47, 50? Why'd you stop there?
Well, I could only go to school for 4 years. So the next year that would have been that 50.
I got you. You were saving up for it. You were waiting for that last year.
I went from 8 to 23 to 30 to 42. So
okay.
So, the next one had to be another plateau.
Right. Now you did that, no 3-point line. Like, do you regret that? Like, you wish you had a 3-point line, or you fine with the era you played in? How do you feel about that?
No, I'm fine with the era. HBCUs in that time of history, that's where all the ball players were.
Right.
You went out when you played against somebody. Every game was against guys that could play.
Right.
And everybody was trying to get the reputation on. So it was good. It was like we had we were a small school, but we had opportunity to play against like Wake Forest. At like 12 o'clock at night because, black schools and white schools wasn't playing against each other.
Right.
But we went over there and we played them. So we kind of knew where we were.
Right. Like judging your own competition level.
Exactly. So, that was good for us.
Now, it wasn't really, it's prevalent back then, but we see it more so now. Like guys, going 1 year of school, 2 years of school, and then going pro. Was that ever even an option back then? Or you knew like going in, it's like, I'm gonna ride this school thing out as long as I can, or?
Well, I mean, it wasn't about, when you're in, I kind of let things, I was like a pinball machine,
Okay.
If it's going this way, that's where I'm going. If it goes this way, that's where I'm going.
Gotcha. Go with the flow.
Follow the flow.
Gotcha.
I don't, we didn't think about it being as such a, going pro. I mean, if you think about it, first of all, it was only 12 teams.
Right.
Okay, pro teams. And they had the quota system. So there wasn't how many black guys going to play pro.
Right.
So most of the guys that played during that time that were really good players, they played in what they call the Eastern League. And whereas they would work for a company and play for that company, during the weekends or whatever the case may be. Gotcha. And guys probably made more money, doing it that way than being in the pros.
Right. Now, what was it? Talk to me more about the quota system.
Well, the quota system was that you only you could only have X amount of black players on your team.
Right.
And as I came in, that we were kind of like at sixes. We could get 6 black players on the team, and
that was the max.
Right. But then by the time I retired from the Knicks, in my last year at the Knicks, we had 12 black players on the team because we had a white player who was on the injured list. So we had 12. And it was something in the papers. They called us the Niggerbockers.
So what was that like for you?
We were in full circle, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what was that like for you coming in? Whereas, when you start, you can only have but so many, and when you leave, that's all there is. What was that like?
Well, you saw the league changing. I mean, as the league changed, first of all, you had the ABA came, started to come up, and then you had the merger, which brought more black guys in, and so forth and so on. But you kind of knew it's just like going, being in school in the South. You knew what you could do, and you knew what you couldn't do. You knew where to go and where you couldn't go.
Right.
So that was kind of the way things were at that time. And just getting back to that time, before I got there, the black guys that were in the league for the most part, those guys were big stars in their respective schools,
right? And
they had to take like more or less subservient roles in order to play in the NBA. Guys that were scoring 25, 30 points a game or whatnot.
Right, and take that step back.
In the NBA, he became a defensive specialist.
Right.
So guys had to go through that whole rigmarole, or go to the Globetrotters, or go to the Eastern League.
Now, I feel like you're mostly remembered as a Knick, but you did start in Baltimore. So what do you remember about entering the league, as a Bullet, the Baltimore Bullets said?
I remember my first game in Baltimore. We had my alumni association. They was, a lot of people went to Winston-Salem down in Baltimore. They had Lionel Hampton playing, at the game and so forth and so on. And we played against the team that I looked at when I came up, which was the Boston Celtics.
Okay.
So we played against, Russell and Sam Jones and so forth and so on. Those guys. It was a kind of surreal night.
Right.
I can remember, my first 2 shots being blocked by Russell.
Right.
Hey, come on. And
that's kind of an honor, though, right? Like
there's no honor getting your shot blocked. Guys can have a lot of reputation and whatnot, but I got a rep too.
Right.
So the third time I went up came down on the left hand side of the basket and to do a right-handed shot, and he was there again. So I turned my body and I flicked the ball up on the backboard, and it spun in the basket. So I said, "You can't get them all, big fella." You get down the court, he's hollering, "Yeah, but 2 out of 3 is pretty good, ain't it?"
Yeah, that ain't bad. What do you remember about just Baltimore as not even basketball wise, just Baltimore as a city, just being there and living there?
Yeah, I like Baltimore. Baltimore is a place that they brought the slaves to be broken. So, and so, there was a lot of things in Baltimore, and it was just like being down south almost. You had your white sections, you had your black sections,
right? And
you knew where to go, you knew where you couldn't go.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. The people were pretty warm in Baltimore for the most part. It was a great time to be in a place like it has so much culture, so to speak. You had Baltimore Street, with the burlesque and all that kind of stuff. and you had Uptown, you had Pennsylvania Avenue. That's where the blacks were. They had all the like that's where all the recording stars that came, and that's where they hung out and so forth. And it was a great a great time in Baltimore. I really enjoyed it.
Definitely. Now things look differently as far as like changing teams back then. So how did you end up getting from the Bullets to the Knicks?
Okay. that was a process. The previous year of me getting traded, at the end of the year, we told the ownership that I wanted to be traded because I felt as though I was wasted away there. And that was just a ploy for the most part, for another contract and so forth.
Right.
And so we got to a point where the owner said something that I really didn't like. And, I was a kind of arrogant kind of person, not really arrogant, but
confident.
Yeah, okay, go with it. And so I said, well, this is it then. I'm not going back. And so I went to Indiana. I went, to talk to them. First of all, I stopped playing. I think we were playing the Knicks that night. And my agent called me and said, Earl, don't play. I said, well, what am I going to do? He said, just go home, don't answer your phone.
Just do not play.
Right. So I said, okay, cool. So I did that. And about a day and a half later, I was on a flight to Indianapolis. And I looked there, saw the Indianapolis team play. And they had a real good team at that time as well. And so that was cool. I was getting ready I was going to say, well, listen, I could play here,
Right.
I like these guys, I could play here. And then I went into the locker rooms after the game and I saw the guys reaching up and getting guns out of their little compartments and whatnot. So I said, oh, shucks.
Maybe this ain't the place for
something like that. So I said, let me go back and cell phones are there, so I had to find a payphone. And I called my agent. I said, hey, Larry, I don't think this is going.
I don't know about this one.
So he said, well, I got another situation for you in New York. And I said, New York? I said, I don't want to go to New York. New York's, we like mortal enemies. We was, and so I said, well, shucks, man. I said, I'm going to go back home. I want to think about it. So I came back to Philly, and I stayed in Philly for a couple of days and whatnot and talked to my mom. I talked to my good friend, Sonny Hill, and we started talking about, all the things that I could do, couldn't do. And one of the things I always felt when I got into the league, I was going to play 10 years. I was going to score 20,000 points. I was going to win championships. And so that was my mindset. So, we got with Sonny and he said, well, you're not going to be able to score 20,000 points, and I was always a scorer. So, that was going to hurt me anyway.
Yeah.
So, but after talking and rationalizing, I said, well, listen, I'm from Philly. That means I can play ball anywhere, any kind of ball. And I'm going to try it. So I got in my car and drove to New York. And that was it. That's how I got there.
So what comes to mind when I say Rolls Royce backcourt? What memories come to mind?
Well, that's when I came to New York in. When I said I drove.
You drove up in a Rolls? Okay. Exactly. You starting it off on the right foot.
Well, obviously, the Rolls Royce backcourt refers to Clyde and myself because not only did we have Rolls Royces at the time, of course I had mine first, but
Would Clyde agree with that? Would he agree that you had yours first, or he would say he had his first?
well, I came here with it. So, you know, I mean, there's no speculation in that, but
Right, that's a fact.
Clyde he had a nice old Rolls Royce that fit his persona as Clyde, you know, the big wheel and thing like that. You know, but you know, we were competitors. We came into the league the same time. I think I was the number 2 draft. He might have been the number 5 draft or something like that. So it was always that competitiveness and whatnot. So when we got together, you know, this was Clyde's team. So I had to take a little back seat and whatnot. But, you know, we got to a point where we could coexist, you know, and, you know, I still took a back seat, but I still coexisted. You know, we were like that. We were good machines, real expensive machines that work well together. And that's what I think about when you talk about Rolls Royce backcourt.
So what was the toughest part of taking that back seat of like fitting your game in with Clyde?
Probably the toughest part of it was when you're ready, you know, if you have your own team, you understand the pace of the game,
right?
And how your team should be paced, and when to take over and when not to take over. And that was the hardest part. When to take, you know, when I wanted to take over, I knew I shouldn't take over. I couldn't take over at that time. So I had to pull that back. And so I had to learn, you know, how to fit in to those different crevices, you know, to make everything work.
See, a couple more questions. We'll jump into. We got some viewer questions here. You all had some personalities back in those Knicks locker. Like, did you know it at the time that you would have like future politicians and Phil Jackson, Hall of Fame coach, and Clyde Frazier's person? Did you like what was that locker room like?
It was a very professional locker room, you know, and you know it was a veteran-laden locker room and led. You know, we had Willis there, of course, and Busher, Bradley had been in, and all these guys. I mean, Dick Barnett. I mean, you know, these are guys that have been through the wars and whatnot.
Right, professional guys. And
when I first got in, I told Red Holtzman, you know, you don't have to worry about starting me, you know, because, you know, I work my way in.
Right. And
I think that took a lot of pressure off everybody in terms of, you know, me coming in. You know, it's like I remember Melo's first game in New York. Melo took over 25 shots. You know, I'm saying, you know, and I'm sitting there looking at him, and I'm thinking back to myself, you know, and when I came in my first game, I must have taken maybe 3 or 4 shots.
Right, not quite 25.
Everybody, you know, liked me, you know. So I was looking at different times and whatnot, you know what I'm saying?
Right. The different eras. Let's jump into the chat here. We've got some viewer questions. Let's see, our first one comes from Bask. Bask says, question for the Pearl. Do you enjoy when NBA stars become the villain?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. You know, it depends on, you know, it depends on the team. I mean, when you look at a team that's soft, you know, you're going to want to have somebody that's a villain on that team.
Right.
You know, you want to have somebody to toughen up that team.
Stand up to it, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, you could go back and, you know, to like the Bad Boys at Detroit and whatnot, but you go all the way up to, well, not all the way up, but you get to the Knicks of the 90s, and, you know, for the most part, most of those guys were bad boys.
Right.
when you talk about Oakley
Same enforcers. Yep.
you know, and you have to have, villains, in a lot of instances. I mean, you go all the way back to the Celtics in their dynasty. I mean, they kept bringing in bad boys from Luskatoff, and all those guys, and it makes for the team to be a little more well-rounded. It's like last night looking at the Knicks and Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I wish the Knicks would have had developed a bad boy,
Right.
Earlier on, instead of trying to be a bad boy
Kind of waiting. Yeah.
in the last game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, waiting too little, too late.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I like to see the villain, but I like to see the villain being used in the right way.
Right. And I was guessing they're asked about as far as like, Trae Young kind of leaning into that villain role, and he's, talking back to the crowd at MSG and all that.
Well, I mean, I would probably talk back to him too if they talk about my hair like they did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got to get him back for that. You can't stand for that.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing in the nutshell is that, you play to the crowd. If the crowd, you're a villain when you come into an opposing arena, and if they like you, they'll show that they like you. If they don't like you, then
they'll let you know
act accordingly.
Right. Let's see. Next question we got here is from Luke. Luke says, who are some guys who have come after the Pearl that are his favorites? I guess like some of your favorite players to watch or keep track of.
Wow, there's so many of those guys. I mean, we could start with Jordan. We could go. I mean, Patrick was another guy I like to look at. Miller,
Reggie Miller.
You come all the way up to these times. I mean, certainly LeBron, Steph. I like to look at Marbury play when he was
Stephon Marbury. Oh yeah.
There's so many guys that play the game. I mean, you take Lillard in his performance the other night. I mean, you can't help but admire this. And here's a guy that, he gets due, but he really probably doesn't get his total due.
Right.
He's still kind of overlooked when you think in terms of all the other players that you look
elite
at.
Players, yeah.
I won't even start naming names in that regard. But there's so many guys that played the game and played the game well. And my whole thing is not that you don't have to be a real superstar, to play the game well,
right?
Be respected in the game,
right?
And we've got some of those guys that like that, and we've always had guys like that. And I'm just happy to be able to sit here and have seen guys throughout the years, so I can really make comparisons.
Right.
In the guys that I've seen throughout my lifetime. I'm not just a young guy coming into the league.
Right. You got some perspective.
Exactly.
Let's see. Next question here. Going from 3Mac. 3Mac says, what was it like playing with the late great Wes Unsell?
No, man, it was great, man. Wes was, not only just a great player, he was a gentleman. And he was the guy. I remember my first year, I kept trying to get rebounds and whatnot. And Wes came back in my second year. Shows I never even went underneath the basket anymore.
Yeah, you can give up on that.
My head out, here I am, with those overhead passes and things like that. But I enjoyed playing with the Bullets because not only Wes, but also with Gus Johnson, and those two guys were just horses. You know, they bet each other who would get the most rebounds and so forth and so on. And you know, us guards, you know, myself, Kevin Lockery, so forth, and Fred Carter, we were recipients of all that stuff.
Right.
So, you know, we baited them on. Yo, you could get more rebounds than you get the ball.
Right, you letting them have it.
Yeah, but Wes was totally my guy, and I really appreciated him.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, we got one more from Bash. Says, how does it feel to have the coldest nickname in the NBA? I mean, I feel like the thing is you've got so many great nicknames. Like you got Earl the Pearl, you got Black Jesus, you got Thomas Edison, the Lord's Prayer. How many am I missing?
Oh, well, we got some that we can't say over the air.
Okay. We'll say those behind the scenes.
Well, you know, it's cool. I mean, you know, most people will you know, think of the Pearl and whatnot. And, you know, how I got that nickname was my senior year in college. A guy wrote a column, and of course I was scoring a lot. And I think I had like my first game was like 33, and then I had 68, and then 58 and 50. So I was averaging close to 50 points a game. And the guy wrote a column, and he listed the scores, and the caption of the column was, "These are Earl's Pearls."
Oh, okay. And that's where it came from.
You know, in the South, everything gets to be short, so that got to be Earl the Pearl.
Earl the Pearl.
And but it's cool. I mean, you know, and you know, you're right. It's a cold nickname. I mean, a pearl is cold. You know, not like ice, but it's cold.
Now, where Lord's Prayer? Where did that one come from? That's a great one too.
Hey, somebody wrote me and told me that one. They're calling you the Lord's Prayer. I said, "Oh, really? Okay." Well, I know I always attribute a lot of stuff because when I was coming up, I used to shoot baskets. We had little peach baskets. First, we had baskets that sat on the ground. And then we nailed another basket up on this lot. Empty lot with where we went to Vacation Bible School.
Okay.
So I wasn't playing, but I used to shoot it. So I always say that my game was already divine because I came from, you know, a Bible school.
Okay, that's where you got your start from.
Stuff that comes up, you know, has something to do with religion.
Okay, that explains the Lord's Prayer. So I think we have one more question here. Oh, wait, where do you weigh in as far as like some of the great all-time backcourts? Like, of course, yourself and Clyde. You got Steph and Klay Thompson. You know, Russ and Bradley Beal right now. Where would you put the Rolls Royce backcourt?
Well, you know, you could ask Clyde, and you could say we go down from that.
Okay.
We ask us who's next.
Right. Okay. Who's second to the Rolls Royce back?
You know, it's you know, Magic had guys that he played. He played with
Byron Scott and
Byron Scott, but there was also he's gone. I can't get, and I know him right off the top of my head. Married to Debbie Allen.
Norm Nixon.
Norm Nixon, yeah. You know, I thought that was a pretty good backcourt back in the day. I mean, you know, it all depends on what happens. See, you know, you know, our backcourt was, you know, we were probably the first two only backcourt that made the starting all-star team.
Right.
So
yeah, definitely.
So there you go. I don't know. You know, guys, I just enjoy the game. I enjoy seeing the game, and I enjoy seeing the game played the right way. And we have a lot of guys that have done that, and I think that we're all really, you know, fortunate because, you know, this is something that's, you know, well, at least for me, I've been involved with for so long, and it's been such a large part of my life. And it's the same for, everybody else who's played. And not only that, all the happiness or tears or whatnot that guys that have played have given the people out there that have listened and watched this here, this thing called basketball. So, cool.
And one last question, we'll let you go. We appreciate you, won't keep too much more of your time, but it's a question we ask all our legends getting together season 2 of our playlist. So what are you listening to, either when you're in the car, around the house, around the office? What kind of tunes? It can be old school, new school. What are you listening to these days?
Well, mostly old school because because I'm doing school now. I just got a school that's named after me that's opening up this year. So
okay,
I'm doing all the old school stuff now.
Okay,
I want folks out there to at least look out for the school. It's the first of its kind. It's called the Earl Monroe New Renaissance Basketball School.
Okay.
So high school. And so we'll be involved in everything around basketball, from your trainers to your statisticians to all the other things that are involved with basketball.
Every part of it.
And you'd be surprised at the type of things that you could get involved with this here. So we're the first of its kind. We opened up in September.
Okay.
And
is that in Philly or New York or
in New York, in the Bronx?
Okay.
Boogie
in the Bronx. Okay. So while you getting that together, give one or two songs while you getting your school together. You said school in September, so we'll definitely
Where the world
keep an eye for that. Okay, some Earth, Wind, and Fire on there.
No doubt. No doubt. I was a big Earth, Wind, and Fire person, and interestingly enough, we kind of came up with guys from the Motown era and so forth and so on. So I still kind of lock into all those things. Besides, I was in the music business for 35 years, so it brings back a lot of memories.
Definitely. So you just had a hand in a little bit of everything.
Well, yeah, and I thank basketball for it.
Definitely. Well, we thank you, Mr. Earl the Pearl Monroe, for taking your time and joining us today.
Well, it's been so wonderful. I didn't think I'd enjoy it this much, but I really have enjoyed it. And thanks to you and thanks to everybody else there. Hopefully we can do it again.
Definitely. Absolutely. We'll keep an eye out. Have to have you back when the school opens up. You said September?
September.
Okay. We can, we'll definitely make that happen. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You too now. Right. And that'll do it for this week's Legends Live. As you know, we've got new episodes live every Thursday on the NBA Alumni's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch page. I'd like to remind viewers you can watch replays of any episode at legendsofbasketball.com/legendslive, or you can catch the audio replay to our conversations by searching for Legends Live wherever you get your podcast. I'd like to give a big thank you to Earl the Pearl Monroe for joining us today. A big thank you to you for watching, to Julio, to Bridget, to Aaron behind the scenes. And we will see you next Thursday.